Alright, Lieutenant D-Bag. That's one more slam dunk courtesy of the Batman coming right up. Boom! Ha! Batman doesn't kill anybody in my ass. That dude's a gunner. Mari, what's wrong?
Batman scares me!
Oh, Mari, you love Bat. Man. His parents are gonna kill me.
I might as well let you guys in on a little secret. I freaking love Batman, which is why today we're doing The Killing Joke. Arguably the most influential modern comic of the franchise, now probably the most anticipated direct-to-video DC Comics movie, with a straight-up R rating? So naturally, in anticipation for this, I got my hands on the graphic novel version because it was the only copy available, and the original coloring job they published this with looks like they coated everything in butterscotch. Needless to say, I was relatively disturbed by it. A comic that dared to give the Joker a fully fleshed out backstory while at the same time telling a story in which Batman has to try and stop the Joker from psychologically torturing Commissioner Gordon to the point of insanity after he's already done something pretty nasty to Batgirl.
To give you an idea of what kind of a fan I am, I love the Batman movies, I love the Batman video games, I like some of the TV shows. The comics, I never really fully got into, and I think I now know why, because some of the folks who write for those need a little psychotherapy. And considering that the DC straight-to-video division is making all these comic book movie adaptations now, let's have a read.
I really don't have to introduce these characters to you, do I? What the heck. Batman's the hero, Joker's the villain, and for those of you who don't know, Barbara Gordon is the daughter of Police Commissioner Jim Gordon, who likes to dress up as Batgirl and fight crime sometimes alongside Bruce Wayne. And yes, there's the occasional shipping, even though fans prefer Batman and Catwoman. There, you're all caught up now. The comic starts out with Batman paying a visit to the Joker at Arkham Asylum to discuss the nature of their relationship, only to find a decoy in his place. Instead, it appears that Joker's out buying an amusement park from some poor sap who really should know better about who he's dealing with.
There can't be too many people out there with pale skin and green hair, are there? And besides, doesn't this guy know that most people who do business with the Joker end up
So from the get-go, we already know who the focus is on here. It's a Batman-Joker story. The film, as most fans probably know by now, starts off with a backstory focusing on Barbara Gordon and filling in the uninformed about her career as Batgirl. She and Batman go after a rather exchangeable up-and-coming crime boss, and the stress of the job combined with her relationship with Batman makes her choose an early retirement. This whole first act of the movie feels like I'm watching any random episode of Batman the Animated Series, only with a little more violence, cussing, and a rather random sex scene that really had fans up in arms.
Yeah, Batman's had so many different relationships over the years, this little controversy doesn't surprise me at all. Just don't tell that to the fans who attack the screenwriters over at Comic-Con about it. My opinion, Batman and Catwoman, awesome. Batman and Talia al Ghul, awesome. Batman and Vicky Vale, it happened. Batman and Batgirl, I don't see why the hell not at this point. Let's see where it goes.
It was just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's not like we have to care. I don't care. You don't care. We just go back like it was. That's all. Please.
Later.
Nowhere. Next!
So yeah, bad guy gets captured, Barbara quits, Batman encounters a murder scene whose perpetrator is pretty obvious, thus prompting him to pay a visit to Arkham, and we, the audience, breathe a sigh of relief knowing that we'll be getting the comic story from here on out. The method in which the story is told is very Godfather 2 in a way. They have two stories to tell at once, flashing back and forth in time as the story progresses. According to this comic, Joker was once a struggling comedian who tried to make ends meet for his pregnant wife by agreeing to pull off a robbery at a chemical plant with a local mob, having his identity concealed by the infamous Red Hood. However, the day of the robbery, his wife dies in a freak accident. He tries to pull out, and of course they don't let him. The robbery happens, it's a bust, and Batman ends up scaring him into a chemical vat and successfully out of his sanity. The story being told in current time has Joker showing up at Commissioner Gordon's place, shooting Barbara in the spine, and kidnapping Gordon, saying he's out to prove a point. When Gordon awakes, he finds himself at the amusement park, buck naked, being taunted and led around by circus freaks. Batman learns everything he can from Barbara at the hospital, then goes around interrogating the usual suspects in his own special way. In the graphic novel, we get a nice little Penguin cameo. In the film, we just get a bunch of throwaway thug characters. Not really sure why. I guess after getting Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, and Tara Strong back in their respective roles, Paul Williams was just too steep? One nice addition the film does is a kangaroo courtroom scene where Gordon is tricked into throwing the book at an effigy of Batman as judgment. Then it goes back to the comic story and... oh god, if you read the comic, you know what happens next. Gordon is sent through a funhouse ride where he is subjected to projected images of Barbara naked on the floor and bleeding while the Joker sings a song about going loony. Now that Gordon is in total shock about what happened, Batman shows up just in time to deliver his own form of justice. As another nice addition in the film, Batman now has to fight off the League of Circus Freaks because that's what he does best. Then it's back to the comic territory as Batman has a showdown with a monologuing Joker in a trap-filled funhouse. Once he finally catches up with him, he gives him one last chance for a rehabilitation. But Joker, of course, refuses, and instead shares one final joke before this tale comes to an ambiguous close. Oh wait, you're still wondering about Barbara? Don't worry, she'll become the Oracle in no time. The mid-credits scene told us so. There's your happy ending. When I say that this comic has been influential, I mean every Batman, Joker, Batgirl story since then on pages or film owes some sort of influence to it, all the way down to the promo material for Suicide Squad. The comic itself later had to include the Joker's origin story in snippets, mainly because he's so insane in the membrane he can't fully remember everything himself. After all, like he says in the comic, he prefers multiple choice. Artist Brian Bolland has gone on record saying that he felt like giving the Joker a full-on backstory was doing the character a disservice somehow, but likes the idea that this is just one of many story possibilities being conjured up in Joker's feverish brain. But the comic's influence goes beyond that. The Tim Burton Batman from '89 used the part of the Joker's backstory where he fell into the chemical vat at the factory to get that oh-so-pale complexion. The spin-off series Birds of Prey gave us an older Barbara Gordon as her hacker persona Oracle, aiding Bruce Wayne's daughter Helena from the confines of a wheelchair, just like she did with Wayne in the comic. And in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, we have a Joker with a mysterious past making up different backstories for himself, one of which he claims he once had a wife, thus fitting in with both the Killing Joke backstory and the multiple choice aspect. Going even further, we have the recent Arkham games, which never seize the opportunity to reference this story when they can, from story elements to downloadable content. Arkham Origins establishes Joker's backstory as a failed comedian by including a flashback segment in which the player assumes the role of the Joker fighting off hecklers. Arkham Knight puts Batman in the middle of a fear-induced flashback where he's forced to imagine the time that Barbara was shot. There's a lot more, but I'd be stuck here all day if I wanted to rattle off every little detail.
With all this praise and influence going back to this one comic, there's actually a dirty secret about it that not many Bat fans seem to realize, or even acknowledge. It's not the first time the Joker was given this backstory.
When Bob Kane introduced Batman to the world back in 1940, there were no backstories to be had. It was all about the mystery here and now. It wasn't until 1951 when the Red Hood was introduced as an anonymous bank robber. He dives into a chemical vat to escape Batman, and the rest is pretty self-explanatory. When writing this comic, Alan Moore made sure to do his best not to disturb any of these previously established details, and instead merely chose to add to it. If he should be credited for anything, it's the fact that he turned the Joker into a more human character by doing so, and that's rather fascinating seeing as he himself doesn't seem to hold this story on a pedestal like the fanbase does. Joker's speech in the latter portion of the story serves as an explanation of motive. He views the world as a mere whirlwind of chaos, and if anyone has a bad enough day, they can crack just like he did. He tried to prove this by torturing Gordon, but failed in his mission. There's a psychological explanation for all this. Nature versus nurture. James Fallon is an established neuroscientist and retired UC Irvine professor who travels and does speeches about the human brain. In the 90s, he and his students were doing CAT scans of the brains of serial killers to see if there was a behavioral pattern that could be physically identified. In 2005, he thought he noticed a pattern in the limbic system along psychopaths and thus formulated a theory. However, later, doing CAT scan research on Alzheimer's, he used his own brain as a control scan and realized that he had the same exact pattern. Incidentally, his DNA patterns line up with tendencies towards high violence and aggression, but he's not a psychopathic killer. This took his theory in a far different direction than he'd anticipated. After reviewing his own family lineage, he realized that he was directly related to a variety of tyrants and ministers, basically a mix of good and bad. Taking into account his biology, psychological analysis, and testimony from family about his own behavior, he now refers to himself as a pro-social psychopath. Only the difference between himself and others with these so-called warrior genes is that he was raised in a good environment. By contrast, Batman did have a bad day. We all know what happened to him because the franchise never lets us forget. But his response to it was completely different. Yes, he was raised in a good atmosphere, and he shows to have a lot of aggressive behaviors, but he also chose to dedicate his life to containing the criminal element, as opposed to spreading it.
From this, one can only conclude that Batman and the Joker have very different brain makeup. And I think we can all put that in the no shit category next to Sherlock.
As the story concludes, we have Batman and Joker both having a laugh over a dark joke. Whatever happens next is left purposefully open-ended. Over the years, many fans have speculated what really happened next. Given that Batman specifically says earlier he believes that his relationship with the Joker will end only with one killing the other, some think Batman was meant to kill the Joker at the end of the story despite his convictions that killing is wrong and his promise to Gordon to bring him in by the book. The folks at DC keep Batman to a strict habit of not killing any villains. The movies have a track record of playing very loose with this rule whenever it serves them, but that's their Batman, not the Batman of the comics. He'll just beat them within an inch of their life. We know the comic Joker doesn't die because that would pretty much put an end to the comics right there. Considering the one-off story nature of this comic and the film, it's quite possible that they have their own set of rules, and whether or not Batman turns on his own code and kills the Joker after the curtain falls is up to the reader.
I'll tell you what I think happened, though. The way I see it, Batman picked him up by the scruff of his neck, threw him in the passenger seat of the Batmobile, and they both drove off to Starbucks to have a cup of coffee. Hey, the whole super thing's only a day job, right? Gotta clock out and go chill at some point. So now time for that age-old question. Book or movie? Which one wins? Scale of betterness. Is it just me, or am I having a lot of book wins lately?
It doesn't have to be good to be a classic.
With all the build-up to this one movie, the months of press coverage it got, the fact that it had an R rating, I really expected a lot from this. And as it stands though, it's just good. But as I watch it, I like to pretend like the first half hour of it isn't really part of the movie, just a warm-up episode to start you off with. Because that's what it really feels like. Something that was written for something else entirely, but was just thrown in here at the last minute to sort of expand the comic story to a feature length. They could have added a little bit of backstory on Barbara just to give you an idea of who she was, and that would have been fine. The way they did it, though, just comes across as clumsy and unnecessary, as if to say, hey, you know what, the fans wanted the Killing Joke movie, so let's just throw it out there in the first draft. And as far as the mature content goes, they really went soft here in parts. We have a few head wounds here, and that's pretty gross, but the comic wasn't afraid to censor Gordon's nudity or Barbara's torture pics, as gruesome as they are. The film takes every chance it gets to soften that stuff up, and I find that rather disappointing. If you've got an R rating, go for the jugular! I've been more shocked by past DC animated projects. These movies impaled Robin's wrists in a sword fight and turned Catwoman into a reformed hooker. It's like they were afraid to go too far all of a sudden here. I can say this though, when they stick to the source material with the minor scene additions here and there, that's really where this movie shines. It's not as strong and focused as the graphic novel, but the filmmakers knew they weren't going to live up to that. And they tried. So for all their efforts, I still say this adaptation was pretty good. So, that's all I have for this From Pages to Pictures. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a childhood to mend. Ciao for now. Yeah, see, Mari, you love Batman.
Yeah, Batman's awesome!
It was just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't have to mean anything.
Later.
Hey, laughing boy, no more bullets.
If you like what you saw here, please, please, please try to help support it. I have a Patreon page. You can help me by going over there, throwing some money, whatever amount that you like to throw in. If you're not watching this on YouTube, I also have a YouTube channel. So go there and hit that subscribe button to be notified whenever new videos and new content come out. I'm also on Facebook. Go over there and like that page so you can be notified as well whenever a new episode or video of some sort come out, as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes content. You can also hit me up on Twitter over there to see what kind of stuff that I like to share. Just be warned though, I don't like getting too many messages. So if you're constantly sending me stuff all the time, I can get really agitated. Remember, my privacy is golden. And if you like my t-shirt, I got a t-shirt store over there too. I got links, I got fresh designs, I got new stuff coming out over there. Provided, of course, that anything actually sells. That's about it. If you like what I do, hit that like button, Facebook me, tweet me, share me on your little social networking sites, do whatever you gotta do. Email me to all your little friends, and that's all I gotta say. Thank you, and peace.